Hey guys, Carl from Purple Misplaced. Today I'm taking a look at Covenant from designer Herman P. Millan and publisher Devir. This is a sort of worker placement style game with a hint, or more than a hint, of engine building and resource management, where you find yourself as a member of a dwarven clan sent by the king into the dwarven caves to sort of reclaim the dwarven halls from evil invading monsters or creatures that have taken over, sort of digging out the caves, slaying the monsters that you meet along the way, and ultimately sort of rebuilding the structures of the dwarven halls, aiming to seek glory. Or in this case, glory becomes victory points, and whoever has the most points wins. No disclaimer needed on this one, as I did pick this up in a trade because I was quite impressed by what I had seen visually. I saw this on a table at the Level Up convention and was really interested in checking it out. So I was very glad that I was able to grab a copy in a trade. That's all I need to say, again, because I did pick this up myself. Let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode in this one works, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. So to set up a solo game of Covenant, begin by placing the game board out onto the table. Making sure to use the side of the board that shows 1 to 2 players in the top left corner. And having done so, you will see a bit of a small problem, is that this board is quite large and the screen is sort of now full, so I will be using 2 cameras for this video. Next, I'm going to take these tradition tiles, mixing them up. I'm going to place 4 of them face up in these 4 locations and place the rest on the side in 2 stacks. Next, take the 2 pieces of the era track, building this sort of flaming forge and placing that out here at the top of the era track. Next, I need to take these project tiles, sorting them by 1, 2, and 3 values on the back, giving those a shuffle, and then randomly placing 1 of each of those 3 in these 3 spaces on the board, and those will be placed face up. Next, I need to take these rubble tokens, shuffling those up, placing 1 out into each of these square spaces here at the top of the board, and I'll place the rest of them face down in 2 stacks on the side of the board. And in that same location, you see these 3 enemy areas. I'm going to take these 3 dice, rolling them, and then placing them out into the location matching the color of that die, like that. Then in the center area of the board here, I need to take these hall tiles, give those a good shuffle, placing 1 in each of these locations, and then in the 4 spaces with this little hex icon on it, I'm going to turn those 4 spaces face up. And in the case of the solo mode, you will have 5 tiles left. After doing that, those simply go back into the box. Then to continue setting up, you will see that on the face-up tiles, there are several skull icons in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to place out a number of enemy tokens from the enemy bag into each of those face-up tiles equal to the number of skulls on that tile. So pulling from this bag, we'll place 1 here, 1 there, 2 in this location right here, 1, 2, and then finally 1 in this bottom location right there, like that. And I'll set that bag off to the side for use later on. On this side of the board, I need to fill in the relic tiles, which are these tiles that look like treasure chests. I'm going to give those a good shuffle, filling in those 4 locations, and then putting the rest of them again into stacks to the side. Then down in the bottom left corner, we need to place out these forge tiles, again doing the same thing, shuffling them, placing them in these 4 locations, and setting the rest off to the side into stacks. At the bottom of the board, we've got this area for the king's coins, which are these tokens right here, exactly the same way, shuffling those up, placing them out, and creating stacks of those coins. And then finally, the last tokens we need to place out are the inlay tokens, which come in both gold and silver types. Again, shuffling those up, placing silver in these top 3 and gold in these bottom 3, and then I will make some stacks off to the side. And then the only other thing that needs to be prepared for right now are all of our resources: iron, gold, emerald, mithril, and these support tokens in +1 and +2 values. I'm just going to set those off to the side so that they're reachable from both cameras. And with that, the main board is all set up. So the next thing we need to do is set up our player areas. So then, the first thing to set up my own player area, I am going to take one of these boards at random. They all have a slightly different organized version of this section over here. Setting that out over here onto the table. I'm also going to take one of these player aids. I'll leave that off to the side and refer to it as necessary. And then I need to start filling in all of my player pieces. In this case, I will be playing as purple, as you might suspect. I'm going to start by taking this shield token with the 100 point side face down, slotting that here into my board. I'm then going to use these 2 lock tokens to lock off these storage spaces at the bottom of the board. Next, I need to take my 8 dwarves in my player color. You'll see that some of them are marked 1 on one side and 2 on the other side, whereas some of them are marked 3 on one side and 4 on the other side. I'm going to set aside all the 3s and 4s because those will be needed to be upgraded later on. And then all of the other 4 will be placed into this active area with the 1 value side face up like that. Then I'm going to take the 15 cart tokens in my player color, placing those off to the side, as well as these 10 marker tokens. But I do need to take 3 of these and go over to the main board to place them over there. So going back to the main board for just a minute. And sorry, I said 3, but that should be 4 because one of them will go here at the top of this track, at the 0 space of this track, the top of this track, and then finally over here starting at 5 points. And you'll see that's because I can get negative points for certain actions in the game. And while I'm over here at the main board, I'm going to take the 3 pillars and the 3 gates in my color and place them on the appropriate icons or spaces. The 3 gates go on this side on these giant gates. And the 3 pillars will get stacked on this side on top of these giant pillars like that. Then back on my player board, I need to place these 2 lock tokens into these 2 lock token spaces over here, as well as my houses and forges. I will start with 2 houses available here and 2 forges available here. But the other house and forge pairs will go one of each. 1 house and 1 forge gets placed here to unlock later, and 1 house and 1 forge gets placed in this location to unlock later as well. And then I also need to set up the AI player. So I am going to take this AI board, which looks like this, setting that out onto the table. And into this slot, I get to place out a tile based on the difficulty level that I will be playing at. So for this game, I'm still not that amazing, so I will be playing, well, let me show you first. There are 3 difficulties: normal, hard, and extreme. I will be playing on the normal difficulty level, so that simply means I slot that tile into that hole on the player board. Then I need to set up the card deck for the AI. There are 4 different types of cards in here based on the 4 main actions. So I'm going to separate these into the 4 different decks, and then I'm going to shuffle those up and draw one of each of those into a sort of starting deck for the AI. And then we're going to use that, shuffling that up and placing it to the left side of their board. So one of each of those like that. This will get shuffled and placed over here like this. And then finally, I'm going to take the rest of these and shuffle them all into one large deck, which will get placed up here at the top of their board. Just like that. Let me slide things down just to give myself a little more space on camera, like that. Now I do need to take some player pieces for the AI. For this video, I will have the AI playing as the red player. I'm going to sort the 4 buildings by type and place them into stacks on here: pillars, gates, houses, and forges. And just like myself, over on the main board, we're going to be placing out the gates and pillars onto the same spaces I did in the other open spot. So here, here, and here for gates, and then again here, here, and here for pillars. And then on their player board, I will take the 4 forge pieces, placing them right there, as well as the 4 houses right there. And then just like me, all of the cart pieces for the AI get placed out, as well as all of the marker pieces for the AI, taking 4 of those, which will go on to the main board, just like for us. So again, at the start of each of those 3 tracks, as well as onto the 5-point spot on the glory points track, like that. And that's it for the AI. They will not use any dwarves. They don't need their lock tokens. They don't need their supply locks either, because they will not be using them. The only other thing we have for the AI is this die, which will be used when they take action. So I'm going to put it near the action board because it will make more sense over there so you can see what they're doing when they take their turn. And then finally, to set up my sort of goals for the game, I am going to take 2 tradition tiles randomly from the top of these stacks over here, going back to my player area, placing those out onto the table. I'm going to deal out 2 of these starting tiles as well at random. This will sort of give me my starting resources for the game, and I'm going to choose one of these in just a minute. And then finally, I'm going to deal out 2 each of these objective tiles, both 1 and 2, like that. And now I do need to decide which of these I'm going to keep. So I keep 1 tradition tile, 1 of these starting tiles, 1 of these objective 1 tiles, and 1 of these objective 2 tiles. So mostly these things aren't going to mean anything to you at the moment. So I'm going to sort of take what I take and semi-explain why I'm taking it as I take it. But I'll explain how these work later on as we get into gameplay. And first things first, looking at my 2 tradition tiles. This one's going to let me move 1 monster or 1 enemy at the end of every round and also score 1 point. This one says whenever I lay an inlay tile onto one of my actions, if it's silver, I immediately take the action printed on it. And if it's gold, I take 1 point. I think I like 1 point every round and the ability to move monsters around, because you'll see later on that as we get closer to the end of the game, I am going to take penalties if there are monsters on places where I'm trying to score. And also quickly coming to the main board, I'll explain all of this in a minute, but I do see there's also another scoring objective right here that says I score 1 point for every location with one of my buildings that has no monsters. So the flexibility to move monsters around before scoring that will be a good thing to have. Then looking at my objectives, here I score 3 points for every pillar I get placed out onto the board. And this one I score 1 point for every forge that I build onto my board. Both of those are going to be very important. Monuments are going to be, the pillars are going to be a way for me to get scoring done in other ways, and the forges are going to give me more flexibility in actions as well as upgrade things as I place them out. Let me see what else is over here. This one scores me 2 points per key, including the 2 keys that I start with. And this one scores me 1 point for every lock. Let me double check what that means. 1 point for each storage space that I have available, including the 4. So not these spaces, but the individual spaces. So I start with 4 points for that, which would also be 4 points for here because that's 2 times 2 keys. But I can unlock an additional 4 points there, whereas I can also unlock 2, 4, 6, 8 points there if I decide to. So the question is, will I be going resource heavy or enemy heavy? And so far, looking at what I've been focusing on, the enemies seem like a good idea. So I'm going to take the 2 key, sticking that right there. And then 3 points per pillar or 1 point per forge. But I should point out the 1 point per forge includes the 4 starting actions. So that's an auto 4 points, but then +1 each, whereas this is 3 points for each pillar, but there are only 3 of them. So that goes up to 9 points, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 potential points. And upgrading forges is a good idea, so yeah, I'm going to take that one actually. So those go away, and now I need to figure out which resources I'm going to start with. So looking at these 2 things, they both offer me moving up twice on the mining track, which is going to be how we get relics. This one gives me 1 iron, this one gives me 2 iron. This one starts me with a mithril, which is a rarer resource. This gives me 3 support tokens, which is what I'm going to be using temporarily to raise the level of my dwarves to make them more powerful. This gives me 3 total, and this gives me 2. But this also lets me move up on the prestige track, which is where I'm going to sort of be getting more of these abilities, and also where I'm going to be permanently upgrading my dwarves. So I think I'm going to actually take this one, which means that to start the game, I'm going to first take 1 iron and 1 mithril. placing those into my storage spots down here like that. And then I get 2 value worth of support, which I can either take as a +2 token like this, or as 2 individual +1s. And that's going to be important because I can only ever place one of them on an action with a dwarf to boost the value of that dwarf. So this means I could boost 2 of them one by one on 2 different occasions. And this would be a single boost of a +2 value. I think I'm going to take the 2 singles separately. I'll stick those over here like that. And then also I get to go up twice on the mining track and once on the prestige track. So putting that away and coming back to the main board, that means my token goes up twice on this mining track over here and once over here on the prestige track. So I am only 1 step away from being able to take one of these additional tradition tiles like that. And with that, we are all set up for gameplay. And there is going to be quite a bit to gameplay, so I'm going to do my best to explain what I can right now, and then I'll explain more as we get into things. But while I'm here at my main board, I should point out that I will be the starting player in the first round, so I will take that. And that starting player will be me the whole time, so I will be going first. So looking at the main board, you can see here that the game of Covenant will be playing out over a total of 3 rounds, or eras, which are shown by these 3 spots here. And in each era, we will be taking 4 actions on, well, taking turns back and forth, taking 4 actions in that era. When that era is done, this will move to the next space. We will trigger any fire abilities on our board and cards, or board and tiles. I will show you that in just a minute. But then we will move here and we're going to score a variety of different things, one of which is going to be these gold tiles here. So in the first era, we will trigger this scoring. In the second, we will score both this. And in the third era, we will score all 3 of these. But I'll come back to explain what all of those mean in just a second. Let me first explain the 4 different actions. So coming back to my player board, you can see the 4 actions printed right here on the board. And there will only ever be 4 types of actions. I will be able to open new action locations by playing forge tiles later on in the game, but we will always be taking one of these 4 actions. And the way that works is I'm going to have 4 turns, as I mentioned, and each of my turns I'm going to take one of my available dwarves and place them on an available action. Each action will only be allowed to be triggered once per round, which is why I'm going to want to add in new actions so I can take multiples of the same action in the same round if I'd like to do so. And the value of the action that I'm taking will be determined by the value of the dwarf that I'm using to take that action with. So in this case right now, everything is value 1. But as I place out a dwarf, I can also place out 1 support token, which will either be a +1 or a +2, adding to the value to determine the value of that action that I'm taking for that turn. And you'll see that throughout the game, anytime I trigger this fist icon in a variety of different ways, that will mean I permanently upgrade from a 1 to a 2, and then ultimately to a 3 and a 4 as I continue leveling up. So let me start by explaining what these 4 actions are. So starting here at the left and working my way across, the first action here is Skirmish. And Skirmish is how I'm going to kill the different enemies that are taking over the Dwarven halls as we sort of slowly dig our way back into the halls and turn it back into our world. So coming back to the main board, you will see that there are a variety of different enemies. There are 3 types of enemies as shown here. We see the light green enemies there. The goblins, we see 1 dark green orc right here, and I see 2 gray trolls right here. And the value of the action that I'm taking is going to determine the value, sort of the strength of attack that I'm allowed to make. You will see that it takes 1 attack to kill a goblin, 2 to kill an orc, and 3 to kill a troll. And then based on what I kill, I will take a variety of different bonuses. For every 1 goblin I kill, nothing is going to happen. For every 2 goblins I kill, I will move up once on this prestige track. For every 1 orc I kill, I move up once on the prestige track. And for every 1 troll I kill, I move up twice on the prestige track. But in addition, and this is not something that's going to build, if I kill any goblins, I will trigger whatever this action is. If I kill any orcs, I will trigger whatever this die shows. And if I kill any trolls, I will trigger whatever this die shows. And after doing that, I will roll those dice. So those will be changing from turn to turn or from action to action in this game. But again, I do want to point out that even if I kill multiples of that enemy type, I do only trigger the die one time, whereas I do trigger the prestige track action multiple times based on the number of enemies I've killed. And by doing that, I simply remove those enemies from the board and place them onto my player board right here. And that's going to be important because at the end of each era, when we do scoring for the era, I'm going to score points for enemies that I've captured in or placed into my dungeon. 2 goblins, 1 orc, and 1 troll will each score 1 point. So 1 point per 2 goblins, 1 point per orc, and 1 point per troll in this dungeon. The difference is we can only hold the number of enemies in our dungeon equal to the number of keys that we have in this area. And you'll see that as I place forges into these locations, these keys will get added here to allow us to hold more enemies in our dungeon and therefore score more points each era. And I can choose at the end of an era what to keep. So if I have a lot of goblins and a couple of orcs, I can get rid of the goblins because they're only worth sort of half a point each, whereas the orcs and trolls are worth a point each. So that is the skirmish action. And you will see more enemies coming out as we start digging those other rooms of our sort of halls on the main board. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And actually, instead of going across, let's skip to that right now. The next action I want to talk about is the dig action. And the dig action is how we open the other rooms or the other halls that we have in our cave system. And again, the value of the dwarf placed on that action will determine the value of my action. And coming back to the main board, you can see up here is the dig action. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a number of these tiles, meaning I'm going to take a number of resources based on the action value that I have available to me. These 4 spots will cost 1 point, and this leftmost spot will cost 2 points, and I can spend any number of points up to the value of the action that I'm taking to take any of those tokens. And you'll see emeralds, mithril, gold, and iron. This is a wild resource, and that simply means I get to take those things from the available resources, placing them into my player board. And I should point out here quickly on my player board, I can only hold resources in these slots. So right now I only have space for 2 more resources. But as I unlock these sections down here, which happens here and here, I will take these off and I will have more space to store resources in future turns. Then coming back to the main board, after doing that, I'm going to look at this track right here. If I took 1 to 2 resources, I will do this. 3 to 4 resources, I will do this. And all 5 resources, I will do this. But all 3 of them say, I'm going to move down on the mining track 1, 2, or 3 spaces. And you'll see on this track there are some yellow bars. These are going to be a couple, sort of used in a couple of different ways. These are achievements that I'm having, and these achievements will be activating those scoring goals, those objective goals that I showed you during setup. But also in the case specifically of this mining track, anytime I cross one of those, you'll see this little arrow here. And that tells me I get to take a relic token from that level or higher. So as soon as I cross this first bar, landing next to this arrow, I can take either of these 2 relics. The rest will slide up and refill from the bottom. But these relics are going to do a couple of things. First, at the end of the game, I'm scoring points, potentially, you'll see this in a minute, potentially based on the number of different relics that I have in my collection. But these are also one-use actions that I can use on any future turn by simply rotating that tile and doing whatever it shows in the bottom right corner of that tile. Then finally, the last step of the dig action is the dig itself, which means I get to flip over and reveal any one tile that is adjacent to one of the tiles that's already been revealed. And before doing so, I will trigger whatever it shows on the back of that tile. So anything that has those mining tools will be moving on the mining track. This is moving on the prestige track. This over here is moving over here on the King's Court track. This means I can buy a new forge tile to place on my player board. This means I get a new support token. These circles here allow me to place out these inlays onto action tiles. I'll explain that shortly. Again, same thing here. These allow me to take a king's coin or pay for a king's coin, placing that out onto my player board as well. And this last one will allow me to send 2 resources to the king's throne. So let me explain what a lot of that does. We know about the mining track already. The prestige track is going to allow me to get more of these tradition tiles, but also anytime I land where there's a fist, I will permanently upgrade one of my dwarves. The court track over here is going to allow me to collect more of these king's coins. The king's throne room is going to sort of be an area majority at the end of the game. Whoever has the most resources delivered here will score 6 points, and second most will score 3 points. And one of the rare ways I can send there is by taking this action. You'll see I can also send resources there as a sort of spillover in another action that I will explain next. But then let me show you how these king's coins and inlays work. When I'm taking an inlay, I need to place an inlay on a location, on an action that I have, matching that type of inlay. So I can show you right here. This action would take a gold inlay, this action would take a silver inlay. But in order to take the inlay, I need to pay what it shows. So these 2 will take 1 mithril, these 2 will take 1 gold, and these 2 will take 1 emerald in order to draft that tile. And when I draft it, I will replace from the supply. And these are basically going to give me additional actions. So for example, if I had this action, which I haven't explained yet, but if I had it and I inlaid this piece right here, this means that whenever I take this action, I will also move down on the mining track 1 space. And looking at these, that's mining track, that's prestige track. This one get me 1 emerald and allow me to move 1 monster. This one would allow me to inlay another jewel. This one lets me move up on any of the 3 tracks once and take a support token. And this one would allow me to place a house out onto the board, and I'll explain how that works a little bit later. So that was the dig action. Then coming back to my main, or my player board, there are 2 more actions, transport and build. And let me start with transport because that's going to explain to you how I get buildings to build. When I take the build action, I can only build buildings that I have available right here. So the transport action is the way that we're going to be unlocking pillars and gates. And to do that, we're going to be able to transport a number of resources that we have in our player board equal to the value of the action being played. And coming to the main board, I can deliver to one of these 3 pillar sites or one of these 3 gate sites, delivering goods as shown here. Anytime we deliver goods, we score 1 point for each iron and emerald we deliver, or 2 points for each gold or mithril we deliver. And then if we've delivered a number of goods equal to the value shown here, so 1, 2, 3, and again 1, 2, 3, we will complete our delivery to that location, and then we will take our building from that location, adding it into our supply. And at that point, I will also place one of my markers in one of these locations, taking the reward that it shows there. And it works the same way for both pillars and the gates. So then coming back to the player board, that would then mean I can, on a different turn, take a build action to place out houses, forges, pillars, or gates onto my board. And the way those are placed are sort of shown here. I can place houses and forges onto hex tiles, and I'll show you in just a minute because there is a sort of restriction to that. Pillars get placed on the intersection of 3 hexes and can only be placed such that there is no pillar adjacent to another pillar. So you have to sort of skip one corner to go to the next corner to place out a pillar. And gates get placed on the borders or the edges between 2 hexes, but gates can only ever be placed 1 per hex. So if there's already a gate on a hex, we can never place another gate on any other edge of that hex. But the way that the build action works is shown here on the board. The value of the action is going to determine which of these things we can activate, and you can always activate lower than the value you have available to you. But what this shows is for 1 action I can place a house, for 2 I can place a forge, a gate, or a pillar. For 3 I place a house and one of the other 3 things. For 4 I can place a forge and either a gate or a pillar. For a value of 5, I can place a gate and a pillar, and for a value of 6, I can place out any 2 structures I would like to place. And again, the reason we are doing that is because based on what we place, we're going to get some benefits as shown here in this book. And I'm sorry for the glare, but you'll see when we place a house, depending on the type of resource that's on the hex we're placing, we will get different resources. When we place I keep calling it a forge, but a workshop, depending on the resource on that tile, we will get a forge, an inlay, or a forge and an inlay. A gate, depending on the 2 locations that it's touching, we will score points. And finally, for the pillars, we will look at all 3 tiles that it's touching, and we will move up on the related track based on the type of resource shown. So let me go show you that on the main board. You can see that each of these locations does have some type of gem at the bottom of it. And I don't know if you can see that from here, so let me grab one of these and show it up a little bit closer. There are some diamonds down here. This diamond shows the total number of houses and workshops that can be placed onto that tile. And it's also worth mentioning you can never have 2 of the same building of your own color. Sorry, not of the same type, but you may not have 2 of your colored buildings, either 2 houses, 2 workshops, or a house and a workshop on a tile. So those tiles that have the 2 diamonds simply mean that 2 players can place there, whereas the tiles like this one and this one that have a single diamond will only hold 1 structure. So those are the 4 basic actions. I do want to explain a little bit more about the forges and what they do. And I also want to explain a little bit more about the scoring now that you understand the basics of how the game works. The forges are down here. Anytime we trigger a forge action that looks like this, I will need to pay 1 iron as printed on the board, plus 1 of whatever resource is shown in the corner of that tile to place that tile out onto my player board. And then looking at my player board, there are 8 different locations I can place out onto. And each of these locations is going to unlock something, leveling up my workers and getting new buildings available, moving up to 2 monsters and taking 2 keys, 2 prestige track and 2 keys, 2 support, opening a locked storage area and getting these 2 buildings. This means I have to pay 1 iron and get a random relic from a stack. Here I move up 2 times on the court track and I can send a resource to the throne. Here I've got 2 on the mining track, and here I get an inlay and I remove another one of these locks. And I can place into any of those locations that I want. But the other reason I want to place into those locations is because there are different scoring goals associated with each of these columns. And if I have 1 forge in that column at the end of the game, I will score 1 point per whatever that shows. And if I have 2, then I will score 2 points per whatever that shows. So in this case, it says that I score points for enemies in my dungeon. So additional 1 or 2 points for every enemy I have in there. And in that case, the goblins are as powerful point-wise as the other enemies. This one is going to score me 1 or 2 points for each district where I have at least 1 building. So looking at the main board, each district is a grouping of similarly colored tiles together. So this yellow cluster is 1 district. This blue tile right here is another district. This column here scores 1 or 2 points for every pillar and gate that we've built out onto the board, and this one will score 1 or 2 points for every different relic tile that we've collected. In addition, I have these 2 objectives that I showed you before, and there's no reason to keep them secret because this is not a multiplayer game. 1 point for every forge and 2 points for every key, but the way that those objectives work is I only score those if I have enough achievements to do so. And achievements are those yellow lines with the stars on each of the different tracks. I need to have crossed at least 4 of those achievement bars in order to score 1 of these tiles, and I need to cross at least 8 of those to score both of them. And any achievement that I've achieved beyond those first 8 will score 2 points for each achievement that I've claimed or that I've succeeded in. Remembering again, at the end of every era, we score based on enemies that I've collected. I should point out, we didn't talk about this yet, but the coins, when they get played while I'm here, as the coins get slotted in, I can put them anywhere I want to and trigger whatever it shows on the board here. And at the end of every round, when we're triggering the next era, I will, based on this fire icon here, trigger whatever is shown on those coins. So those coins could trigger multiple times, but these icons here will only trigger when the coin is originally gotten. Also here, fire track says every turn I'm scoring 1 point and can move a monster. But then again, remembering at the end of every era, I'm scoring based on these. So this says in era 1, and then again in era 2, and then again at the end of era 3, I'm scoring 2 points for every house on tiles that have this green emerald available in it. And I'm scoring 1 point for every workshop on a blue tile. Then in the second era and the third era, I will be scoring 1 point for every building I have on a tile that has no enemies. And then finally, only at the end of the third era, I'm scoring for pillars, 2 points for each pillar in a green zone, or that touches a green zone, because remember, they'll be on the intersection of 3 tiles, as well as 2 points for every gate touching a yellow tile, and 1 point for every gate touching a black tile. And then at the end of the game, I will also be scoring points, 1 point for every 3 leftover resources and support tokens that I have. And I'm also going to lose 2 points for every enemy that is left in a tile where I have a building placed. I need to make sure I clear out the halls where my buildings are placed. And we are scoring, again, majority based on this throne. And I didn't point this out, but I should point this out now, that the only way to send 2 here is based on this. Or if I send in a turn more resources to a location that exceeds whatever this value is, that sort of spillover will go to the throne. But once I've met that and I've placed my marker on that location, I can no longer send goods to that location to force them into the throne. The throne is simply spillover in a single delivery, or any icon like this that allows me to deliver to the thrones. And there are some other little things about like what these tradition tiles do and so on, but I'll sort of talk about those as I get to them. So like next time I trigger a tradition tile, I will explain what they do so I can explain why I'm choosing the one I do. And also the AI's turn, I will explain as I take the first turn of the AI. But I think like that, we are all ready to get into gameplay, and I know that's a whole lot to take in, but it's really not as complicated as it sounds, and hopefully it sort of falls into place as I keep playing. But I do want to make sure that I'm getting lots of forges, and I do want to make sure that I'm getting lots of keys, which means I probably want to kill lots of enemies. So let's go ahead and dig in. And I do take the first turn. And I would like to try and push towards upgrading stuff. But the only way I can get stuff upgraded, upgrading my dwarves, is by hitting this fist here. By hitting this fist is the closest one to one of those, or by placing out one of my forges in a fist location, or getting a gold coin that goes, a king's coin that goes into the location with the upgrade. So let's start thinking about those things. But first, I would like to, while there's this one enemy left that has 2 value, I'm going to place out my dwarf on the skirmish action, playing one of my support tokens like that to get a value of 2. Coming back to the main board means I do kill this guy right here, which means that looking at the orcs, I go up once on prestige, which means I will be taking one of these in just a second, but it also means I get 1 more gold, and I also get 1 support token. So I'm going to take those, placing those on my main board, because that does have to fill in a slot there. The orc gets placed into my dungeon, and now I have to look at these tradition tiles over here, see which one I want to take. This one is really cool if I'm fighting enemies, because it says anytime I take one of these dice things, I'm allowed to look at all of the sides of the die and pick the one that I want to pick. This one simply gives me 1 more storage and 1 more key. This one here says whenever I place a pillar, oh, this one says I can build pillars directly adjacent to other pillars, so I don't need to spread them out as I'm supposed to. And this one says that anytime I dig, I score points based on the type of mineral that's shown on the tile I flip over, 1, 2, or 2, emerald, gold, or mithril. And I should point out that these 2 at the top, you'll see this cost right here. I do need to pay 2 points to take that, or 1 point to take that. But I am potentially scoring on keys. Having more keys to hold more enemies is not a bad thing, as well as having an additional spot to hold things. So I do think I'm going to lose 1 point. Taking that, that gets slotted into my main board like that. And then that is the end of my turn, so this slides down, and we will replace that with 1 more tile like that, which says that when I take a transport action, I get +1 to my action value. And that's my turn. So now it is the AI's turn. They will only be playing these cards unless they add these in. These will get added in as they take forge actions instead of adding forge actions to their board. So I'm simply going to turn over this card and take a look at what it does here. This says they're taking a transport action. So they are going to roll a die to determine where they're placing out their resources. Then they're going to try and deliver resources, starting with mithril, gold, emerald, and then iron, to that location. And they will always be placing out as many deliveries as needed to fill that location. They will take the pillar or gate and place it on their board, and they will take their clan marker, placing it in the furthest left construction site, gaining the court track bonus, and they will also get a reward as shown at the bottom of the card right here, which will be 2 further movement on the track. So first things first, coming back to the main board, I'm going to roll that die. And it says 2, which means looking here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are delivering to 2, which is here, which means they're only delivering 1 resource. They prioritize mithril, so they're going to place one of their carts on that mithril spot. And when they do that, they score 2 points for delivering mithril. 1, 2. They will then also place their marker here, going up once on this track, like that, taking away this and placing it out onto their board. And then finally, the bottom action on that card says 2 on this track again. So 1, 2, they go up, which means they will claim a gold coin. Those are also labeled by die value. So rolling that die again getting a 2, that means they take this coin. That is the end of their turn, means these will slide over. We turn over 1 more of these like that. And going back to their board, they're not doing anything special with this. They don't get what it shows on there. They're simply going to add that there, like that. They will score points at the end of the game. 1 point in normal mode, 1 point for each of the things they've collected there. And actually double checking the rules on that, I do think they do get what it shows there. So this says iron and 1 point. When they get resources, the resources just go away because they don't use them, but they will get the 1 point from that coin. So that goes up like that, and it is now my turn. All right, so I think digging is probably a good idea so I can start spreading out on the board, but also so I can start picking up some more resources, although I do have a lot of resources right now. So delivering some resources to get a bonus somewhere is probably a good idea. Yeah, let me deliver before I dig so that I have more space for things, because I would like to build something if I can. All right, so where do I want to deliver? I can do 1 or 2, means I can either get one of these pillars, one of these pillars, or one of these guys here. None of them is specifically scoring more than other things. Remembering, though, that pillars get me track movement, whereas the gate only gets me points. So getting pillars is probably a good idea, and I might as well get 2 while I can. Although, I can still hold 2 things. And if I come here, that means I've got lots of resources to start getting extra actions. So that may actually be a better thing to do. Although I was kind of aiming to get an upgrade, but a forge can get me an upgrade as well. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. I'm going to take a dig action, actually. So placing here plus a support is a level 2 dig action. Whoops, that's not dig. Here is a level 2 dig action. So that means I get to spend 2 points up here. And I'd like to take mithril for sure because it's worth a lot. And looking down here, mithrils and coins, but I've got sort of everything I need at the moment. So I think I'll still take the Y. No, you know what? I want to take this iron because I need more iron. For sure, every forge takes an iron. So going back to my board, I've got a space there for mithril. I've got a space up here now for iron. Those tokens from the board go away. They'll refill in a minute, but I only took 2 things. So I'm only going to move once on this track here, unfortunately, but it does mean I get to flip something here. And I think that's going to be this one here, so I can take a forge. Flipping that over is another yellow space, which is great because the hulls are scoring on yellows. So between here and here is 2 yellows, and between here and here is 2 yellows. So I potentially can score lots of points off that if I pay attention. Although right now houses and workshops are more important. That does mean then that I have to put 2 enemies there because there are 2 skulls on it. So we've got 1 more goblin, And another orc, whoops, like that. And then I get to take a forge. So I'm going to spend 1 iron plus something else. I kind of want to skirmish. I do have 2 mithril, so I'm going to spend an iron and a mithril for that one. Spending this mithril and this iron that I just got, like that, which means I do get to place this out, and I would like to upgrade somebody. So I'm going to put that there like that. And I can only upgrade things that haven't been used, so I do get more buildings in there. And one of those will now become level 2, like that. That is the end of my turn. AI takes their next turn, which is their build action. So they're going to prioritize pillars, they don't have any. Then gates, they will be building this gate. And the way that a gate gets built is looking at this pattern here, rolling the dice. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. I'm going to place out the gate on the leftmost edge, and if it can't, then all the way around like that. And then I'm going to score based on what the scoring is for each of those things. And then finally, the bottom action on his card this time says that he's going to transport goods to the throne, starting with mithril, then gold, then emerald, then iron, and score points as shown. So coming back to the board, rolling this die, it is a 2 again. I don't know how I'm going to keep rolling 2s, but I did, which means that the 2 value shows this spot right here, placing right there, which is horrible. That is the possibly worst spot he could have placed, because now I can't place anything around this one, and I can't place anything around this one. So both of these yellows are now ruined. I can't put on that spot between these 2, and I can't place on that between these 2, so there's only one spot for them to go at this point, which is not good for me. I also just realized doing that I forgot to roll this die earlier when I took that action. In any case, he places out a gate, and the gate is placed out on a mithril and a gold. Mithril scores 3 points, gold scores 2, so that is 5 points for them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And again, they are delivering to the throne. There is no mithril delivered, so they are going to deliver mithril. And delivering mithril gets them 2 points like that. And that is their turn. Ouch. Super, super ouch. All right, then my turn. I've got potentially another skirmish action. I've got a build and I've got transport. And I do have a +1 left. I now have a 1 and a 2, which means I could get a 3 action, which means I could deliver 3 goods somewhere and get a bunch of other stuff. I think I'm going to do that. Yeah, let's do that. 2 goes to the transport. +1 is 3. Means I'm delivering all 3 of these goods. And I think I want to prioritize pillars now. Yeah, because pillars let me go up tracks. Let's prioritize pillars. So I'm delivering here. So again, I've got a mithril, an iron, and a gold, which means I can deliver a mithril, an iron, and a gold. Mithril and gold score 2, so that's 2, 4. Iron is 1 is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for me, returning those resources. And that means I finished this pillar. And it means I get to place one of my markers here, which is 3 spaces up this track. 1, 2, 3, which is going to get me a gold coin. But let me put that pillar on my player board. And now, taking a look at these coins and realizing I never filled in this spot, like that, we've got, again, I need to spend points on these if I take them. This gets me support, this gets me track movement here, this gets me prestige track movement, and this gets me points. I think I need to take the prestige track, means I do have to lose 1 point. But then coming back to my main board, I get to slot that here. I don't have any resources, so I can't take a forge right now. I don't have any resources, so I can't buy an inlay right now. I could take a relic. I could level somebody up. I could take a wild and a support, or I can take any track and a support, and I think I'm going to level up so I can get this guy up to a 2, like that. I don't get the prestige until the end of the era when the fire triggers. So that is the end of my turn. AI takes their next turn, which you can see is going to be a dig turn. So coming back here and realizing again that I forgot to reset these track, these should all slide down. And I should get 2 more here, emerald, emerald. On the AI's turn, they're gonna roll a die. And using that die, 6 is going to determine which tiles they take, except they are gonna take 2, so I have to roll twice. So they will take this 6 and a 3, which is this one. They don't get resources, so those simply just go away. And then they will dig twice always. So they go down twice like that. Then they're going to roll a die to determine where they're digging out. So that's a 4. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 is here. In that row, they will take this, which will push them up once on that row. And now they deliver twice to the throne room, which means I'm pretty much out of luck over there. But I would like to do it at least once so I can get the 3 points. But they did an emerald and a gold, so that's 3 more points for them. 1, 2, 3. That flips over like that, and oh, that was beautiful. That was wonderfully beautiful. Wow, that's super wonderfully beautiful, but I don't have any more support tokens, which is sad. Then at the bottom of their card, it does show 2 more dig, or 2 more mining tracks, so they go 1, 2. And they will take a relic token starting from the top that is different, is a type of relic that I don't have. So they're simply going to take this top relic. It doesn't mean anything for them. And looking at this, I don't believe that they actually should have gotten this coin. So I'm going to put them back 1 point. That relic also just gets stored there. They will go back 1 just from that. All right. That's their turn. So I get 1 final turn. It has to be a skirmish or a build. I definitely want it to be a build, although I really wish I could get up to a level 3. Although, yeah, that's going to work out real well. All right, I'm going to take a level 2 build action. And from the level 2 build action, I can build a workshop, a gate, or a pillar. And I'm absolutely going to build the pillar because, remembering at the end of the game, pillars are scoring based on greens. And if I put it on this intersection right here, I get 2 greens and a yellow. So I will be scoring 4 points on that at the end of the 3rd era. It does mean I'm sacrificing 2 points here that I could be getting for placing out a house. But houses only get me resources, and pillars are going to get me track boost, which is super important right now. Green are mining track boosts, and yellow is prestige track. So I get 2 green means 2 mining track and 1 prestige. But before that, these relics should fill in like that. So I get 2 mining track, 1, 2, which means I can take this relic or this relic. They're all good. This one's going to get me 2 support, which is going to make my actions better. So I am going to take that right now. And I get 1 push here, so 1 more there, and I'm going to get another upgrade, which will be very, very cool. But that is the end of my turn. AI's last turn is a skirmish action, which means they're going to roll the die to figure out which row they are attacking. And in that row, it wants to try and kill 1 troll. And if it can't kill 1 troll, it should kill 1 orc and 1 goblin. And if not, then it should kill 2 goblins. So the only rows that works right now are 2, 3, or 4. So I'm going to roll until one of those happens. 4. So they will kill 1 troll. And while I'm here, this should have slid up. So killing 1 troll means that they get 2 prestige bumps, 1, 2, which means they're going to take 1 of these tiles. Let me roll for that while I remember. It is a 4, knocking down everything. 4 means they take this one, which is again face down, just added to their collection. And then they are going to take 1 random track and 1 wild resource. The wild resource doesn't mean anything to them, but when they get a random track, they actually get all 3 tracks. So they're going to move once on mining, once over here on prestige, and then once again here on the King's Court. And they will add that enemy to their dungeon, but then also at the bottom, you'll see they're getting a forge. So that simply means they take the top card here and add it to the bottom of the deck here. But right now there is no deck here, so it just becomes the next card they will play. Then that die gets re-rolled and placed back out. And now it's my turn. I have no more dwarves left, so that triggers the end of the first era. Which means over here we slide down like this, and we go through what happens in a council phase, which is what this fire represents here on the board. First things first, we return all of our dwarves back to our tavern, so all of these guys come back at the same value they were at. All of my support tokens go bye-bye. Then I'm collecting rewards from King's tokens, which is for me 1 on a prestige, which is wonderful because that will boost up to a fist, which means somebody gets upgraded. So I can boost another 1 to a 2, or I think what I'm going to do is upgrade one of my 2s to a 3 like that. I also have this fire here which says 1 point and move a monster. So I will get 1 point. And I'm going to move this guy away from me over here because I'll never play on that tile probably. Nobody's scoring for Mithril, and I can't place a gate on that yellow anymore. So I think that's that. Then I'm going to check how many enemies. I have 1, I have 2 keys, actually 3 keys, so I can easily hold that 1. He does score me 1 point. So I'll go up to 10 points. The AI also scores here, as you can see, 1 point for this troll. So that goes up 1 as well. The AI also, as shown here on the board, in the first era they do this, second era this, third era this. So it says at the end of the first era, they're scoring 1 point for every building they've placed out, which currently is just 1, so they go up 1 point like that. And then I am scoring based on here, which is 2 points for every house on a green or area, and 1 point for every workshop on a blue tile. I don't have any of those this time, so I score nothing for that. And that is the end of the first era, and we move into the second era. All right, so second era, here we go. I need to build things, but I want to build a gate, which means I need to deliver some goods to the board, which means I need to get some goods, which means I should probably start with a dig action. And I want to save my 3, but if I can dig 3, I get to go twice on the mining track, which gets me closer to another relic. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm using this to take 2 single support tokens. Playing a 2 dig plus 1 is 3 dig, going back to the board, realizing I forgot to add more tiles there. So I do get to place out or take 3 things, unless I take this one, but that's a 2, so that's not going to help me. And I'd love to get Mithril to deliver out here. So I'm going to take a wild, a gold, and an emerald, and my wild will be Mithril. So placing those out onto my board. We've got Mithril, an emerald, and a gold. And then back at the board, that means that I did dig 3 times, so I move twice right here. 1, 2. 1 step away from another relic, and I get to dig. Which could get me a relic right away. Could also push me up that way. Could push me here, but the relic, this one seems like a good idea, and it's getting me towards another forge, which I definitely want to start thinking about. So let's do this one. Gets me 1 mining and 1 prestige. There's another yellow place. Prestige goes up 1, mining goes up 1, which means I do get a relic now. And they're all different because I have a shield right now. And I can take any of these 3 because I've now crossed... no, I lied. I need 1 more space. It's not crossing that line that does it. I'm not there yet, so pause that. Yeah, pause that. I need 2 enemies there. You got 1 goblin and an orc. Then these fill in and AI takes a turn. But now I have a lot of resources which I can use for all kinds of things like forging, but also delivering, which is going to be a big important one right now. But let's see what AI does. They are taking a transport action, which says, roll, place, move up on the thing. Their final thing is delivery to the throne again. They're completely wiping me out on the throne, but that's okay. Let's see where they're delivering. They roll a 2 again, which they've already got. Wow. I think this die is weighted perhaps 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is here, which hurts because that means they're delivering 3 times. And that means mithril, and again mithril, and gold. So that's 2, 4, 6 points for them. Ouch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're up to 25. It also means that they take a gate and they move up 3 times on this track. 1, 2, 3. Picking up another coin. Let me put that gate out on their board. And the other coin, whoops, these should slide and refill. Sorry to keep forgetting that. Rolling this die again is surprisingly or not surprisingly a 2. They take that. These slide down like that, flipping over like that. That's theirs. And they deliver to the throne just once, but they are going to deliver that. Stone there, emerald for 1 point like that. My turn. Not fun. These should refill first. I keep forgetting to refill. And we've got, 1 point every time we cross a line, which would have been nice, except I've already crossed a couple, but I am about to cross one here and not too far away there. But anyway, back to my turn. I need to work on getting gates and building gates before I run out of gates. Or, sorry, before he takes a really high level or really important space for me. So, yuck. Kind of just want to play like a 2. Yeah, let's play a 1 plus a 1 to do a dig. Not a dig, sorry, a transport 2. And I will transport a mithril and a gold because they get me more points. And doing that, I'm sending a mithril and a gold here to this gate right there, which is 4 points for me. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And I take this gate and place one of my markers there, move up twice. Over here is 1, 2, crossing another line, yay. That gate goes out onto my board, and that is my turn. Yes. All right, so AI has done their cards. They shuffle those up. All right, so they are going to skirmish. Whoops, rolling a die is a 3. They're attacking this row, which means they will kill that troll right there. Troll gets them 2 bumps here, 1, 2. And for the AI, anytime they get an upgrade, they simply get 1 more point. So that goes up 1. They also get 1 mining and 1 mithril, which does nothing for them, but this gets re-rolled. 2 points and a beer or a support token. That troll goes into their dungeon. And the bottom action is a forge, so they take this top card and put that at the bottom of their deck. And that is their turn, my turn. Now we are building, for sure. I have no support, but I'm going to go 3. Yes. Yeah? Hold on. If I kill things, I can get support. I can build more things. Potentially. Hold on. Let me think about the orders of things. Because, yeah, I'm doing this differently. I'm doing a 3 skirmish, actually. But I need a +1 to do that. I need a 4 skirmish. 3's not gonna help me, because that's only gonna be a 1 for the next thing. But I can place any building with one of those relics, I believe. All right, then we're doing that. All right, so I do place out the 3 as expected, which means that I will kill these 2 because they're in my way. Means I get a 1 plus 2 is 3, and they were on my tile, so I want to make sure that's true because I will be scoring points for that, which is 1 orc and 1 goblin. The orc doesn't get me anything, but the goblin gets me 1 prestige, which means I will take one of these. And let's see, transport is an additional transport. Don't love it. Crossing lines get me points. Don't necessarily love it. I think I like this wild. But also the ability to place pillars next to each other could be huge if I place a pillar right there. Yeah, I'm going to take that. And it's free. That gets slotted into my board, but then also I get an iron from here, an iron from here, and I get to go once on this mining track, which does then unlock that. So 2 iron, and I will take this necklace. And these 2 get re-rolled, which is a mining and a wild resource. And that's my turn. AI's turn is transporting Where to? 2, 5. Okay. So they're coming here. Means they're sending 3 again. Ouch. Which is a mithril and a coin and an emerald. So they get 2, 4, 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. I also need to slide this down. 5 points for them. They get this. They go up 3 times on this golden track. 1, 2, 3, like that. That pillar gets added there. All right, then then I need to finish their transport action. The bottom again is delivering to the throne. 1 point for them. Ouch. All right, I need to start scoring some stuff, which means I absolutely need to build this turn. It is only a value 1, which means I have to place a house, but I'm going to activate this necklace to place out one more something. And the question is, do I want it to be a gate, which scores me lots of points, or would I rather have a workshop? Because if I place out a workshop correctly, I can get inlay and forge, which is going to be super helpful for me right now. Yeah, we're going to do that. So first things first, I place out my house somewhere with green because that's going to score the most points. And it doesn't really, yeah, let's put it here actually, because this is only one building can be placed there. So my house gets placed there, and I'll turn it sideways so you can see what they are. And placing a house in green means I get an iron or an emerald. And it's not going to really matter. So let's take an emerald, just because I've already got 2 iron. And then, using that relic, I am placing out one of my workshops. Workshop should be placed on blue, which is fine, except that this guy is a problem. Aha! But my ability will let me move them next turn. So that's fine. I'm going to put my workshop on blue. Am I? No, I'm not. No, I'm absolutely not. I was gonna, because then I can score a point. But if I put them on this mithril spot instead, then I get a forge and an inlay. So the only forge I can buy right now is this one, because it's an iron and an emerald, so I will discard those. And that means coming over here, this is scoring for big buildings, which I will have at least 2 of right now. This is scoring for different terrains, which right now everything I have is connected to one terrain, so this is better. Digging's not that important right now. Paying for relics I could do, but I don't think I want to, and that's killing. I have 3 kills, that's not bad. But I want this because potentially I'm scoring points for keys. That lets me hold more things, which right now I could only hold 3. Now I can hold 5. Plus I get to go up 2 on a prestige track, which you'll see is going to be really awesome, because that means boom, boom, I go up there and I get to upgrade somebody. And the only one I can't upgrade is the one that I'm currently using, so this one can't upgrade. So I'm going to change this, this one into a 2. So I don't have any wimpy actions left. And then I still get an inlay. And placing houses could be really cool, because there's lots of green spots out there on the board, and each of those is worth 2 points. Driving up tracks and getting support, though, could also be really good. But I can't pay for anything except for these 2. So either mining or placing houses. Yeah, let's take the house. I'm paying 1 emerald to place that out. And I think I'm going to place it on my dig action. So now anytime I take a dig action, I get to place a house out. That's great. Now I need to fill some stuff in. These don't slide. There's no arrows to show that, so simply placing in another inlay for an inlay. This gets replaced here. I should have replaced this a while ago. And that is that for me. And then AI takes their final turn of the round, which is a dig action, rolling twice. 1 and 3. So this one and this one go away. They do always take 2 digs, so that's 1, 2. Nothing happens yet. Then they get to flip one of these. Rolling for it is 5 is here, this one. So they're going to take another mining action and another of the King's track. So mining does get them a relic, which I'll do in a second, and one more here gets them a coin. Ouch and ouch. But we just found some more yellow, which is kind of cool. is that means a gate can go here and a gate can go here. And that means I can do this to get another upgrade. Cool. All right, so then they take a relic, which is going to be the top one that I don't have. I still don't have a helmet, so they will take that helmet. Those slide up and get refilled. These slide over and also get refilled. And then they're taking a coin. Whoops, that's the wrong die to roll. What am I doing? I'm sorry, but I think that was 2 points and a beer. Yeah, I think so. And if not, I apologize. This is what I should have been picking up. Rolling a 5 means they take this coin. These slide over. This flips to fill in there. They get another coin there. And that should be, not quite. They get their special bonus action, which is another 2 on this track here. 1, 2, like that. That's the end of their turn, which is then the end of the second era. We trigger fire stuff. So on my board, I get 1 prestige here. I get 1 point and can move a monster. So 1 gets me that. I'm going to move this monster away from here, and you'll see why in just a second. And I also get 1 point. All of the dwarves come home. My mugs go away. I check enemies. I've got this goblin doesn't score anything, but my 2 orcs score 1 point each, so that's 2 points for me. Checking the AI, they have 2 trolls, that's 2 points for them, plus they're still scoring 1 point per building. So 2 for their trolls, and then buildings. They still only have 1 building, so that's only 1 point. Yes. I should point out on my player board I do have space for 5 because I have 5 keys. I only have 3 enemies, so that is safe. So now we have to come over and score these 2 goal things. 2 points per house on green, I have 1, so that's 2 points. Workshops on blue I don't have, but that's because I wanted to trigger that, so I'm glad I put it there. So now I'm counting the number of halls with my presence that have no enemies. So here's 1, here's 2, and then this guy's got these 3, and none of those have enemies. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for me. And that is the end of Era 2. We move into our third and final era. I need to get some more stuff built for sure. I'd like to kill more monsters, but there aren't that many, and I just realized I forgot to spawn monsters on him. And I hope that's the only one I forgot to spawn. Let me count the monsters out. I forgot to spawn 2 monsters somewhere, and I don't remember where. Because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 2 is 6, 7. I have 3 is 8, 9, 10. And there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me check the camera again. I apologize, and let me see what I can do. All right, so checking the camera, I never put things there, which means that one shouldn't have scored the 1 point from there. So I do actually have 1 fewer point, which is sad because I probably would have killed those monsters had I known. Putting those out, we've got another troll in there, and we've got another goblin in there. All right, so I do want to clear that out. I would like to do some more digging. I could potentially get an upgrade. And moving more on this track's not a bad idea. Do I want to do a 3? Yeah, I want to do a 3. All right, so I'm going then to play a level 3 dig, which lets me take these resources, except that one, which is a 2. I don't like it. I'm going to take a gold and a mithril from that, and 1 more iron, so I have it for forges and things. So that's iron, gold, and mithril. Placing out those resources in my area. Then that was 3 to 4, which means I get to move down here twice. 1, 2. And I get to dig. Now I kind of want this forge, but I also want this upgrade more importantly. So I'm going to flip that. And it is a blue, which isn't a bad idea. Except, let's see. I want to upgrade one of my 2s to a 3, like that. And that is the end. It's not. Because I dig, I also get to place out a house, which is great.
And I want houses in spaces with green stuff. This one is good, so let's go ahead and do that. Green means I get an emerald or an iron. I will take the emerald, which does get placed out here in my extra slot. That's my turn. AI takes their turn. Doing a build action. They are trying to build this pillar, which means I'm going to roll on this. And again, we'll start at the bottom left corner and then clockwise, trying to find a spot where they can place. So rolling the die is a 3, which means they are looking at this spot, starting here, looking for a triplet area they can place, which is going to be there, but there's no third place, so they can't. So then here, which they can't because that one's there, so it's got to be placed here. So that's 2 yellows, or sorry, 2 gold and a mithril, which means they're getting 2 prestige and 1 of this golden track. 1, 2 gets them one of these, and that pushes them across there. Rolling for these tokens is a 5. They get rid of that one. Into their supply, these slide down and refill. And before I forget it, these also slide over and refill, which is fine because I'm not going to take another dig action, but let's set that up. Then the bottom of their card says, again, delivering to the throne. They love that throne. I don't think I'm ever getting there, so that's fine. That goes there. They get a point like that. Sad because they're going to get 6, and I won't get anything unless I can find a way to deliver there, but I don't think I will. Although I could if I build the forge here. But having more keys is 4 points. This is just 3 points. Anyway, there's lots of possible things that could happen. But let's see what's gonna be the case here. I want to build, potentially. Let's see, I have 3 actions left. I need to kill for sure. I need to build for sure. And then the last one, I don't know yet what's gonna happen. So let me do a level 3 attack. Doesn't matter which one I use. Level 3 attack means I'm killing 3? 3 is not enough. Hold on a minute. Is there any way that I can get more supplies? There is, if I can get a coin. Yeah, I don't have much option, so attacking is gonna have to be the way to go. So 3 attack as expected. I'm gonna kill this troll right here, which gets me 2 moves here, 1, 2, which does get me one of these tiles. This is 1 point every time I cross a line. I don't know how many more lines I'm gonna cross. This one says during the fire, I score 1 point for pillar and building, or pillar and gate, which will be 2 at the next fire. That's 2 points, but I have to lose 2 points to get it, so that's silly. But this one could be good. Although right now, 2 points and a support is probably the right thing to get anyway, I think. Yeah, let's just do this and see if I can cross any lines. I don't know that I'm going to, but I score. I did that. I get this. I get 2 points and 1 support token. That slot's in there. He comes in there like that. These fill in. I'm not doing great. All right, then he takes a transport action, delivering to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is here. They've already taken it. 5 again. 6. They've already taken it. 6. 3. 1, 2, 3. He takes here. Means he's delivering 2. But that's great because that's all he's got left anyway. Is a mithril and a gold is 4 points for him. 1, 2, 3, 4. They also go up twice on the track here. 1, 2 like that. Means they've got a pillar. And now they take 2 more movement on this track from the bottom of their card. Means they're taking another coin, which is a 5. This one right here, sliding over. Flipping that one. That gets put into their pile. I think I'm getting destroyed this game. What's happening? I need to build. I could build a 3. 3 lets me place a house and anything. Could be a house and this gate. What else can I do? Transport, build, or skirmish. Skirmish, I didn't re-roll this when I took it, is again 2 points and a support token. So I could skirmish, but I don't get a troll then. Could only kill goblins, which would let me dig, which doesn't help me there. Kill an orc, pushes me up once here to level up something, and gets me a wild resource, which I can't hold anyway. I don't know. If I play it 2, it means I don't put out the house. It means I lose 2 points at the end of the game, but I do then have the ability to upgrade my second action. I think that's what's going to happen. But I really want to get up a track. If I deliver 2 resources here, I could go up twice here, get a coin, which gets a forge, which could do all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I think that's the answer. All right, so I am transporting +1 is 2 to send some stuff to that pillar. And the only thing I can send is 1 iron and 1 emerald. So one of those goes here, one of those goes here. So I score 2 points, 1, 2. Then I place out my marker there to go up twice here, which gets me a coin. And which coin do I want? The free one. Goes in here, which lets me build a forge. Yes, yes. Lets me build a forge. And I can get any of these 3, but it's not going to matter right now which one I take. Although it might. None of those are digging, unfortunately, and building is what I want to do next anyway. So I'll just take this because spending 1 iron and 1 coin. And then I got to slot that in somewhere. There's a variety of different places. This would be good because it means that I can put a resource in the king's throne to score 3 points and push up twice on the track, which means I cross another yellow bar. This would cross another yellow bar. This would get me 4 points and let me move 2 monsters. This one is not useful. This one gets me 2 more upgrades, which means that I could upgrade this to a 4. And building a 4 would be beautiful. Yeah, I think that's what I have to do. All right, so that goes there. I'm going to get a double this. And I get to unlock one of these, which isn't going to matter right now because I won't have that much resource. These get placed here like that and like that. Yeah, and that's my turn. These all slide down. And this fills in like that. Yeah, it takes their turn, which is a building. They're going to build this one. Rolling for their building is a 3, which should be placed here. No, 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 no. Can't, nothing. So we'll have to roll again. Is a 4. Based on the thing is checking here. No, no, can't. It's going to place right there. So they get 2 gold and a green, which means 2 prestige and 1 mining. 1, 2. They get a point for that upgrade. And 1 mining goes there. And their bottom action is to place out a forge or a workshop. So rolling on the workshops is number 6. So they're going to place the first one in this row where they can, which is right there. Yellow for that means that they will take an inlay. So rolling to see what they take was a 2. They take away this inlay, replacing that. And that again goes into their collection. End of their turn. My final turn is a 4 build, which means I am building a forge and a gate. And let me see how I want to do this. I want to place it out so that I can do these. I don't have any iron. I don't have any iron. So none of those is going to matter unless if I put one of these on a thing that I'm doing right now, I can activate it immediately. But I need an iron. And the problem is if I don't, then I couldn't have gone here and gotten that, and I wouldn't have gotten that, so I can't undo any of that. That's a shame. I'm 1 iron short. But placing out the gate's gonna score me lots of points. I don't want to lose these points. If I put that there, I score a bunch of points, but then I'm going to lose 2 points for the monsters there. 4. If I place that here, there's monsters. There's still going to be monsters anywhere I place. Do I not want the gate? Yeah, but that's worth it. That's 8 points minus 2 is still 6 points. And having the forge doesn't get me that far. Let me slide these down. Just because filling that one in. Huh. Tricky, tricky. None of these help me right now. Then do I place a house instead of a forge? I think I might place a house instead of a forge. No, I'm going to do what I planned on doing. But yes, I will place a house instead. I'm going to put a house there, which gets me a green or an iron. And I'll take the iron, but I'm not going to be able to use it right now. And then I'll place my gate in there because this monster is going to go away anyway. That's 1 point each for the greens, because if I put it here, I get an extra 2 points for this mithril, but then it's going to be a minus 2 for having placed on there anyway. So I do that, and that's 1 for green and 1 for green is 2 points for placing there, like that. And unfortunately, that is my turn, which means I don't cross any lines, means that was completely useless. Grr, but that's my turn, and that's my game. AI shuffles their deck for one last turn. I did very poorly this game, but anyway, it's still showing off how the game works, so yay. AI takes a skirmish action for their last action. Rolling. Let's see. For skirmish action, they need a troll, or a goblin and an orc, or 2 goblins. So 1, 2, and 5 are possibilities. That's a 5. They kill this troll, which means they go up twice here. 1, 2, taking away one of these. It's not going to matter because I don't have any more turns left, but 4. It will because they score on that. Done. They also get 2 points and a mug. And for them, when they get a mug, that's just a point, like that. And he goes into their dungeon. This gets re-rolled, but it doesn't matter because that's the game. And they get a forge action, which simply puts a card under their deck. That is the end of the third era. We go into the last sort of end round steps. Doing here, the flame says I get a point and a prestige, which is funny because now one of my guys is upgrading, but it doesn't matter because that's the end. Let's flip 1 to a 4 just to say we had a 4. Yay. Then this fire gets me a point and lets me move a monster, which is important because I need to get this monster out of my face, and a point. Then we score monsters. This goblin doesn't score. I get 1, 2, 3. He also gets 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, like that. Plus, at the end of the third round, he scores 2 points per building. Is 1, 2, 3, 4 is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for them. I slide here and I score all of this. So each house in green is 2. So that's 2, 4, 6 points for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any forge on a blue, workshop on a blue zone. I don't have any, nothing. Every space that I have control of with no monsters. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that. Then 2 points for every green that's touched by my pillar, which is 2 of them. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 2 points per yellow and 1 point per black touching a gate. I have 2 yellows touching that gate. It's another 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. We go into final scoring. And I think let's start with the AI. The AI scores based on what it shows on their tile. For the normal difficulty, first things first, they're scoring 1 point for each of these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points for all of that. So 56 goes to 66. Then they score 1 point for every card in their deck, plus 1 for every bar that they crossed on the board. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then lines 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points for them is 1, 2, 3, 4 is 70, and 10 is 80. And then finally, they score points for the throne. I didn't score anything there, so they get the full 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for a total of 86 points for them. Then for me, the throne scores nothing. I check my objectives. I have crossed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I only get to score one of my objective tiles. So either 1 point per forge or 2 points per key. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 2 points per key is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So clearly I'm taking the 10 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points like that. Then I score based on tools, which this one scores based on killed enemies is 1, 2, 3, 4. This one doesn't score because I don't have anything there. This one scores 1 point for each pillar or gate, which is just one of each is 2. So 4, 5, 6. This scores on different relics is 2 again, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points for me again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets to 71. I would lose points if any of the stuff I controlled here had enemies in it. There aren't any, so I am safe. And then finally, 1 point for every 3 leftover resources or support tokens. I only have 2, so that is nothing. And that's the end of the game. I scored really badly, 71 points to the AI's 86. That is a loss, but it still shows off the game. And I will say that this is the first time I've lost to the normal AI. It's generally a fairly close game, but this time I played really poorly. My high score before was a 98, and I am not anywhere near close to that, but this is a fairly complicated is not the right word, but strategy intensive game. And while I'm trying to explain things and go over things on 2 different cameras as I'm teaching, you know, that's how it works out. In any case, that is the game. This is the point of the video where I do like to take a look at the components. And I have to say I am completely in love with the way that this game looks. The world that's been designed here is gorgeous. The character art that's designed for this is beautiful. I just want to show you the cover of the book up, or the rule book up close. This is the Spanish rule book, but there is English and Spanish in the book, or sorry, in the box. I just want to show you here the artwork here. I believe this comes from a comic book artist in Spain, but super, super gorgeous artwork. I love the theming and the design and the world building of this world, and I'd love to see more games sort of set in this universe. Everything just looks great. Everything thematically fits where it should. There's clearly the King's Throne. Here are the different projects that are trying to be built, so we're sending resources there to build those things. You know, here is the mines where we're digging down into the different halls, the dwarven halls, getting stuff for digging out the mines, discovering enemies hiding in the hideaway spots of the caves as we're digging, killing them out, slowly building in our buildings to sort of rejuvenate the halls. Really thematic tie into everything that you're doing, but also mechanically, we'll talk about this later in my final thoughts, but mechanically very rich game as well. Visually, it looks great. Lots of cool wooden bits with these different carts here and the different dwarves of different, they don't only have different numbers, but they also have different images that go with them. They're just wooden columns, but these sort of stickers are, I think it may be screen printed. Pictures on them looks great. All of the tokens, very nice, very heavy, very easy to understand iconography. These dice remind me of something like the dice in Too Many Bones, really nicely printed, sort of plastic or acrylic dice. The different building shapes really do look the part. They really feel different. They seem to sort of show off what the different things are. I just love the way that this game looks. The different tokens, I don't know if you can see these on screen real well, but these are acrylic tokens, which sort of have a layer of sticker on them or coloring on them, and then a layer of clear acrylic plastic. But these are very nice acrylic tokens. This little fire that tracks the rounds, definitely not necessary for it to be this sort of 3D sculpted piece, but I love the way it looks and it works very well for what it's doing. Just very, very happy with the way that everything looks. I should show you the resources up close as well, because those are also the same kind of acrylic tokens as the markers. And again, not necessarily important that they are that, but they're very, very nice quality pieces. Huge fan of all of the components and very much of the visual design of this game. Everything is very easy to parse. Everything is very easy to understand and follow. I should show off more closely the player aid. Really nice player aid. This broadly describes the different actions available to you. I never showed you this, but some of the forged tiles, let me see if I can find one, have books on them. Yeah, here we go. Have books on them. The books generally don't allow you to put inlays on them, but the books are wild. Means I can take any action I want to using that book, which becomes quite advantageous. I wanted to take a second dig action this time to push some other things up, and I just couldn't do it because I didn't have an action available to me. So if I'd had a read action, it would have given me more flexibility. But here we go, all the different icons and tracks in the game. The different benefits of the buildings, I did show you this a couple of times, the different halls, a bit of a description of what happens in the solo mode. Here's a summary of the flow of the game, how to score things in the council phase, how to score things at the end of the game, and you better believe I use this pretty much every time I play the game. Really, really nice, and there are enough of them in the box for everybody to get one of those for them. So a game that could be pretty complex becomes quite a bit simpler when it's explored and explained in that way. The other thing I do like to take a look at during this part of the video is the insert, but the box insert looks like this. There's nothing, this is just lots of baggies, but I think this is sort of what you've come to expect in a big box Euro that's like this. Most of the time it's just a bunch of components in baggies. Yes, it would be nice if there was a nice insert that held everything in some reasonably nice way, but that is sort of par for the course. So no complaints from me on that. It's basically all I have to say about the components. We'll be back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. I didn't do wonderfully well, but I think I did show off the game pretty well. And yeah, this game has a lot going on, and it's not exactly the easiest game in the world to play, but that was Covenant. So let's talk about this. I have to say that this year I've been having a really good experience with big, crunchy Euro games like this one. I did just review Campania, which blew me away. And now this one as well. Really, really enjoying what I've seen here. Again, a unique twist on sort of worker placement at its core. And I say sort of worker placement because this one is sort of a mix between action selection and worker placement. And I say that because all of the spaces that you're placing workers out in this game are on your own player board. So you're never being blocked by other players, and you're also never blocking other players from taking specific actions. The actions are only being blocked by yourself. And I say that because on your player board, you start with 4 unique actions, and there will only ever be 4 unique actions in this game that you can choose from. But you've got 1 space of each of those 4 actions. And throughout the game, you will be adding more action spaces onto your board, which will do a variety of things. In addition to giving you access to taking those actions multiple times in the same round, it also unlocks different things depending on where you place those action slots out onto your player board. And that will be different for which of the player boards you're playing with each game that you play. But in any case, there are 4 main actions, although one of the actions, there is a 5th sort of action tile that will fill in some spaces with a book on it, and that book will allow you to choose any of the 4 actions should you play that token or that tile out onto your board. In any case, the 4 actions that you're playing are sort of thematically tied into the game, and I have to say I really do enjoy the theme on this one because it is a fun sort of Tolkien-esque dwarves going back into the caves, re-digging out and rebuilding their old sort of halls, building out structures and clearing out the monsters that are living in those caves currently. But you're taking 4 actions. And those actions are going to be dig, which is when you're sort of digging out into caves, collecting resources that you discover along the way, opening up new locations or new halls in those caves, ultimately also finding monsters out in those caves and potentially discovering relics or sort of treasures along the way as you're digging. The next one is skirmish, which is how you take care of those monsters that you are discovering in those caves, killing those monsters and collecting different rewards for having done so. Or glory from the king, which is this sort of way that points are scored in this game. There is the transport action, which is you delivering the different resources that you found out to a variety of different building sites that will sort of create new pillars and new gates that you will be installing into those rooms or in between those rooms that you're sort of excavating with the dig action. And then the fourth action is that build action, where you are building, and I'm going to freeze on the other two names because I kept getting it wrong in the video. It's not a forge, it is a workshop, houses, and then those pillars and gates that you've built, or sorry, created, will then get placed out or actually built into the halls of this sort of dwarven cave system. So the houses and workshops gets placed out into the rooms that you've uncovered, whereas the pillars sort of go on the vertices of those rooms, sort of holding up the world, and the gates go in between the rooms, as you'd expect, because gates sort of lead from one place to the next. So again, the four actions that you're taking are dig, skirmish, transport, and build, and all of these things are very thematic to the game, but also all of these things sort of interact in unique and interesting ways as you're playing this game, turning this game into a sort of combination engine building worker placement style game with quite a bit of resource management as well, as you're discovering these resources along the way and then using those resources to create the pieces that you will be building into the caves, as well as using those resources to sort of build out your action selection or your worker placement locations on your board so that you can take more actions moving forward. And I say more actions, not better actions, because the type of actions you're playing are not changing based on those spaces. Those spaces you're adding in are just allowing you to take the same type of action more than once in a given round. Because again, at the beginning, you start with one of each of these four actions on your player board. And on your turn in each round, you're going to be placing one of your dwarf tokens onto one of those actions and taking that action, which means that once you've done that, that action can't be played again until the next round when everything does clear off and start all over again. So if you do want to take more than one dig action, or if you do want to take more than one skirmish action, for example, in a given round, you need to make sure you have more than one dig space on your board and more than one of those skirmish spaces on your board so that you can place into multiples of those spaces moving forward in the upcoming rounds. But the way that the action itself is going to be determined, or the sort of strength or what you're able to do with said action is going to be determined, is based on the sort of strength or power of the dwarf itself who's taking that action. And at the beginning of the game, you're starting with 4 level 1 dwarves, and you will always have 4. There's no way to get extra workers in this game, but you will be leveling up these workers. And throughout the game, there are a variety of different actions that will lead to an icon printed on the action or printed on a tile that you've taken or what have you, that will allow you to upgrade these dwarves to level 2, level 3, and ultimately level 4 if you've done that enough. And every time you level up, you get to choose which of the 4 dwarves you level up. So you can push one to be extra strong, or you can sort of level up each of them little by little. So you've got a variety of sort of mid-level dwarves, so you can get a lot of things done, versus if you level up 1 to 4, you can get one giant action done. And again, this level, 1, 2, 3, or 4, is going to dictate what you can do or how much you can do with the action that you're taking. In addition, you're going to be collecting support tokens that will either be +1 or +2, and these are going to be one-use tokens that allow you to boost for that one action the value of that dwarf to a +1 or a +2 level, again allowing you to accomplish either more stuff or bigger stuff on your turn. So let me sort of talk about that now with these 4 actions, going back into each of these actions, so describe a little bit more mechanically what each of these actions is going to be doing. So starting with the dig action. When you take a dig action, the value of your dwarf is going to dictate sort of the value you have to spend on resources as you go into these caves. So there are, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 resources on a track on the board. The first 4 of those will cost 1 point each, and the last one will cost 2 points. So you're going to spend the points that you have from the level of the dwarf plus support tokens to buy as many of those resources as you want. They refill at the end of your turn, not while you're buying them. And those resources will be collected, but with the caveat that in your player board, you need to have locations for those resources to slot into. And you start with 4 slots, but you're able to unlock 2 more sets of 2 slots, and you may be able to get a tile, sort of an upgrade token later on. And my brain is blanking on the names of those tiles, but you will be able to get some other tiles, one of which does have an extra slot for resources. But generally, you start with 4, and you can get up to 8 on your board by unlocking more storage slots. So you're storing those resources onto your player board as part of that dig action. And then the remaining piece of the dig action is, depending on how many resources you have collected during that action, you will then move on a dig track. And the dig track, in addition to sort of scoring based on how far you've moved on that track, or triggering scoring, I'll get more into scoring towards the end of this video, but triggering scoring based on how far you've gone on all of the tracks on the board, the dig track at certain levels as you dig will give you access to relics. And relics are going to be one use sort of bonus ability or bonus resource or bonus something that you get to trigger after having gotten that relic. But also one of the potential endgame scoring conditions is that you score based on the number of different relics you've sort of accumulated throughout the game. So that's the second piece of the dig action. And then finally, the last piece of the dig action is you're going to choose, in the center of the board is a physical sort of representation of the Dwarven Halls. And you're going to choose one room that hasn't yet been excavated that's adjacent to one that has already, and you'll flip that tile over. On the back of all of those tiles, there will be bonus actions that you take. That could be moving up on tracks, that could be upgrading your workers, that could be taking more of those support tokens, and so on. But you'll flip one of those over, taking whatever actions it shows on the back, revealing a new room in the Dwarven Halls, and then putting enemies on that tile based on a number of dots or pips on that tile, actually skeletons or skulls in this case, drawn from a bag, randomly placing one of 3 enemy types onto that tile, either 1 enemy or 2, again, based on what it shows on that tile, and that's the dig action. So you're getting resources, you're moving down the dig track, potentially collecting relics, and then you're revealing a new room, taking some kind of bonus action. Next, the skirmish action. Now that you've got these monsters in your halls, how do you get rid of them? The skirmish action is how you're going to get rid of them. And what's going to happen is, based on the value of the dwarf that you've played in that action, you're going to get a value of sort of strength or attack to take out monsters. There are 3 different monsters, and I'm going to blank on the 3 names. I think they're goblins, orcs, and trolls in that order. Goblins take 1 value to kill, orcs take 2, and trolls take 3. So you can use your value as you'd like to remove these from the board. And then as you're removing them from the board, 2 goblins, 1 orc, or 1 troll will allow you to move up on another one of the tracks whose name I'm forgetting right now. But 2 goblins moves up once, I believe, 1 orc moves up once, and 1 troll moves up twice, if I'm getting that correct. Again, in any case, killing the monsters will move you up this. I believe it's the reputation track. And this track is mostly going to be getting those tiles that I couldn't remember the name of before, that will give you sort of once per round bonuses or boosts of some kind, or will give you some kind of rule-breaking ability, or tweak an ability in some way, or give you a sort of an if-then kind of bonus ability. And those will slot into your player board as you move up on that reputation track at certain locations. The reputation track will also be another one of the ways that you can upgrade your dwarves to a higher level value. But in any case, after having killed off any goblins, orcs, or trolls, in addition to moving up that track, you will also find on the board there are 3 dice, and each die is associated with one of the 3 enemy types. And whatever shows on top of that die, you will also take as a bonus, just once if you've killed that type of enemy in that turn. And after having done so, you will roll that die, so potentially something different will happen the next time that happens. And then you'll place all of those monsters or enemies onto your player board into a sort of jail section. And I'm going to mention this now while I'm talking about this, but your jail section is going to be able to hold a certain number of enemy pieces at the end of each round, equal to the number of keys that you have available to you on your player board. And you'll start with 2. You can boost that up to 6 through a normal placement on your player board, but some of those tiles that you're slotting in, whose name I keep forgetting, will potentially have more keys on them, and that's going to dictate how many enemies you can hold on to. And that's because at the end of each round or era, I'll bring this back up when we talk about scoring later, but you will be scoring points based on the number of those creatures you have in your jail area. And again, I believe that's 1 point for every 2 goblins, 1 point for every 1 orc, and 2 points for every troll, but I could be getting that slightly wrong, so I apologize if that's the case, but that's the skirmish action. Next, we've got the transport action. There are 6 different sites on the board, 3 pillar sites and 3 gate sites, that will require you to deliver any resources, assuming they haven't already been delivered, in order to work towards developing these new sort of structural pieces that can then later be built into these halls. And they will all take the same types of resources, but again, there are a set number of resources of each type that can be delivered at each of these different sites. So it will be somewhat of a race competing with your opponents about who gets the stuff there first, because mithril and gold are worth 2 points each when they're delivered, whereas emeralds and iron are worth 1 point each when they're delivered. And the two top sites, means one pillar and one gate, will take 1 resource to finish building. The middle 2 will take 2 resources, the bottom 2 will take 3 resources, and you can take as many turns or many actions as you need to send the resources there that you need to, but if in a single turn you've sent more resources there than are necessary, the spillover will get sent to the king's throne, which is going to be a small sort of area majority thing. Whoever has the most resources in the king's throne will score 6 points at the end of the game, and whoever has the second most will score 3 points. So sometimes it's worth it to send extra resources because you will still get points for sending those resources, and you can spill over into this extra area majority scoring at the end of the game. But for the most part, the way the transport action works is the value of your dwarf is going to dictate how many resources you're allowed to send on that given turn. Now you have to, of course, have those resources available in your personal supply to do so. And those get sent out, you get the points for having sent them, and then if you've crossed the threshold for how many resources that location needs, either 1, 2, or 3, you will take the piece associated with that location, either a pillar or a gate, and add that to your player board, which then in a future round will be able to be built out onto the board. So that's all the transport does, except that once you've cleared that and you've taken that piece onto your board, you will also place one of your markers there that show that you've already completed that area, and you will generally be moving up on a 3rd track, which is a sort of King's Favor style track that occasionally will be giving you these King's Coins. And King's Coins slot into your player board. When you slot it into your player board, it's going to do something big, like getting you an additional action on your player board, upgrading one of your dwarves, and so on. But then each of these coins has a smaller thing printed on them, and at the end of every era, you'll also trigger whatever it shows on that king's coin. So these are things that are definitely worth gaining or gathering. But again, I should mention again here that the dig track, the reputation track, and this King's Favor track have sort of thresholds along them that you're wanting to cross, because at the end of the game, and I'll talk more about this again as I get into scoring, but at the end of the game, you're going to score points or be allowed to score points based on these sort of personal goals that you have, and you start with 2 of them. But you need to have crossed at least 4 thresholds on these 3 tracks to score one of them, and you need to have crossed at least 8 thresholds on these 3 tracks to score both of them. And then if you cross more than 8 thresholds, 9, 10, and so on, you will score additional points simply for having crossed those. So you do want to move as far on these 3 tracks as possible. So then the 4th and final action is the build action, and this is basically just going to be able to build out your houses, your workshops, your pillars, and your gates. The houses and workshops, you start with 2 of each of them. The other 2 of each of those come from, and I haven't really talked too much about this, but there are forge tiles. And I keep saying you can add more action spaces to your board. That's how you do that with these forge tiles. And every time you place a forge tile into one of these locations, you're covering something up. That's how you're going to unlock new storage areas. That's how you're going to get new keys to hold more creatures or monsters in your jail cells. That's how you're going to do a variety of different things, but that's also how you will get your third and fourth house and workshop piece to be able to build that out onto the board. But you've got houses, workshops, pillars, and gates, and again, the pillars and gates came from that transport action earlier, and the value of your dwarf in this action is going to dictate how many and what type of buildings you can place out. And these are all printed on the board, and there's no way that I'm going to remember them all, but for example, a level 1 might let you place out a house, a level 2 might let you place out a workshop or a pillar or a gate. Some of them will let you place out multiple buildings, and I know that the highest level, which I don't remember right now, is a 5 or a 6, will let you place out 2 of any type of building that you'd like to. The houses and the workshops get placed into the halls, into the hexagonal rooms in the halls. And each of those rooms has a little diamond marking that will allow you each tile to hold 1 or 2 structures in it. And that includes houses or workshops, but each player can only ever have 1 thing in it. Just that if there's a place that has 2 diamonds, it means 2 people playing, or in the case of solo, you and the AI, can both have a building in that location. And when you place out houses, you're going to get resources based on the sort of crystal type or the resource type that's in that location. And when you place out a workshop, you're going to be either getting forges to add new actions to your board, or getting these inlay tokens, or potentially both, depending on where you place out. And that's again based on the resource type that's printed on that tile you're building. So forges, you will have to pay an iron and some other resource to take a tile and put that onto your board, unlocking whatever is there where you place that tile, but also adding whatever new action is printed on that forged tile. Inlays come in silver and gold, and you're going to have to pay a resource to buy them. And these are little circle pieces that you're going to add onto one of the forged tiles on your board, either one of the 4 starting action spaces or one of the ones you've added through forged tiles. And most of these in the corner will have a silver or a gold circle, so you have to match the color of the inlay tile, but the inlay tile is basically going to give you a secondary action or bonus that is triggered from that point on whenever you take that action. So it's going to sort of level up or boost the actions that you have available to you, and it might mean then that if you have multiples of the same action, one of them becomes stronger than the other because of this additional sort of bonus. So you're getting those from placing the workshops out onto the board. Then the pillars and the gates are going to work a little bit differently. The pillars get placed on these sort of triangular vertex, and I don't know how to show this with my hand, but imagine where 3 hex tiles meet. That corner in the center is where you're going to place out a pillar. And the pillars can never be adjacent to each other, so you always have to skip one vertex to place out on the next vertex when you're sort of placing later on in the game. And pillars are going to give you movement up the different tracks depending on which, again, resource type on the tiles you're next to, because now I'm placing out on a vertex. So that means I'm adjacent to 3 tiles when I place out that pillar. It means when I place out that pillar, I'm going to move up 3 times on one or multiples of that same of the tracks on the board. So this is a great way to drive up those tracks and get other things done. The gates go on the edges between 2 tiles. And you can only ever have 1 gate on the entire tile that it's touching. So once you've placed a gate between 2 tiles, those 2 tiles will never have any other gates touching them, which makes placement of these quite tricky. And again, the gate is going to activate based on the resource type in the 2 tiles that are touching it. And the gates are actually just going to score points. So you'll score a variety of different point levels based on which resources are in those locations where you build the gate. But the gate isn't going to give you any kind of abilities. It's not going to let you move up any tracks. It just scores points. But points, of course, ultimately are the best things because that's ultimately how you're going to be winning the game. So again, you're building out these 4 actions, digging to get resources, to level up, to potentially get relics, killing monsters to score points, to get bonuses, to move up the reputation track, to help upgrade your dwarves, or to get those tiles that give you special bonuses or special abilities, transporting resources to sort of prepare pillars and gates to place out later, and then building things to build out a variety of different features into the halls to score points, to get resources, to get new action spaces, to upgrade those action spaces with inlays, and ultimately to move up these tracks as well to potentially score more points. And you're playing out over a series of 3 eras, and each era you're going to have 4 workers, and the workers will slowly get upgraded, and the spaces will slowly get upgraded, and the things you can do will slightly build and combo and so on. But at the end of each of these eras, you're going to do a couple of things. First off, on your player board, those tiles whose name I keep forgetting, as well as the king's coins that you've collected, may have potentially abilities that will trigger. They'll have a little fire icon next to them. All of the king's coins will. The tiles, some of those will have something that triggers with that fire icon. All of those things will trigger. So those will trigger 3 times potentially throughout the game at the end of each of the 3 rounds. But then in each of these eras, you're going to have some kind of special scoring that happens based on the buildings on the board. And in the first era, the first one will score. In the second era, the second era, the end of the second era, the first 2 will score. And at the end of the third era, all 3 of those will score. And these are going to be based on having buildings in specific colored rooms, having buildings in specific resource type rooms, having buildings out in locations without any monsters and so on. So you're trying to place your buildings not just to score points when they're placed, not just to move up on tracks when they're placed, not just to get forges and inlays, not just to get resources when they're placed, but then also to score these sort of end of era and then end of game scoring conditions based on the placement of these buildings, which adds a nice extra layer into what you're thinking about as you're placing out. But then also at the very end of the game, you're going to score in a couple of other different ways. On your player board, there are 4 columns lined up with the 4 original actions in the game. And as you're slotting in the forge tiles, adding actions to your board, you're placing them into these columns. They don't have to match the other resources. You can place anywhere you want to on the board. But each of these 4 columns has a scoring condition for the end of the game. One of them will score based 1 more point for every enemy that you have in your jail at the end of the game. One of them will score based on the number of different relics you have collected. One of them will score based on, I believe, pillars and gates that you've built out. And the 4th one I'm blanking on right now, and I apologize, but there's a 4th scoring condition that you can see in my video because I did point them all out at the end of my playthrough. But the point is there are 4 different other endgame scoring conditions. And those 4 will only be unlocked if you've placed a forge tile into the slots in that column. And if you have 1 forge token there, because each of them has 2 empty slots, if you have 1 there, you'll score 1 point for each of those things. And if you have 2 there, you'll score 2 points for each of those things. So this is another way to score more points based on the stuff that you're focused on. But it's interesting because you get to choose where you put these tokens and therefore create your scoring goals that hopefully then works with the things that you're accomplishing in the game getting done so that you can get more stuff done, which is, or score more points for the things that you've gotten done, which is really cool that you're able to choose the scoring goals and then sort of work towards those goals. But remember at the same time, where you're putting those forge tokens is also going to unlock whatever you're covering when you put that forge token there. So you have to think about the scoring goals, but also the things that you need when you're slotting those forge tokens in. And it's a really cool idea to sort of balance these 2 things. And it really does push you to think about the game and think about scoring in a different way every time you play. And each of the player boards does have a slightly different organization of these things. So just by swapping to a new player board, you do get a chance to try things slightly different the next time you play, which is also really cool. In addition, everybody is sort of dealt out at the beginning of the game 1 level 1 and 1 level 2 sort of personal scoring goal that you also are working towards. And this is at the end of the game, you're going to check those 3 tracks and see how many of the thresholds you've crossed. And if you've crossed at least 4 of them, you'll score 1 of your choice of those 2 tiles. And if you've crossed more than 8, you'll score both of those tiles. And these give you a variety of different things to be focused on scoring. And this really also does change up the way you think about what you're doing and how you're doing and the order of things that you're doing. In the game that you just saw in my playthrough, I had one that scored based on keys, so I really wanted to open up my jail cells as much as possible. And I had another one that scored on forge tiles, so I wanted to place as many new action spaces out onto my player board as possible. But there's a large variety of these, and they really do push you to try different things every time you play the game. That's a lot. I just walked through a whole bunch of stuff in this game, and I have to say I'm really enjoying the way it all works. I love the way that it's sort of worker placement with action slots that you get to add in new action slots, but the action slots themselves aren't changing so much as you're then also upgrading your workers so that the actions get stronger. But then you can also occasionally add those inlay tokens that adds even extra abilities to them. The timing of things, the order of things really does change, really does make things different every time you play. But at the same time, there's this really nice story of digging out the halls, getting resources, discovering monsters, killing the monsters, preparing structures to then be built into these caves, ultimately turning it back into the Hall of the Dwarves. Meanwhile, doing all of these things to sort of honor the king who's then giving you glory, or you're basically receiving glory for having done this, which ultimately then turns into the points to see who wins at the end of the game. And I just love the way it all ties together. There's a whole lot of stuff to think about, but there's a really nice sort of through path that you can follow from action to action, but there's also lots of freedom for decisions on what to do, when to do it, and then all of these different tiles that give you different scoring, that give you different abilities, that twist the rules in different ways, that allow you to try to change things or sort of scaffold things in a different way. So it really does have this nice engine building core in addition to this worker placement core. I'm loving everything about this game that I'm seeing, and in addition, the solo mode in this game works very, very well. Everything is based on a card flip. At the beginning of the game, the AI also starts with one of each of the 4 actions, a random card in each of those, and when you turn those cards over, the way that the AI activates that action will be the same every time. And it pretty much does the same thing you do every time with a bit of a dice roll in there to sort of help it select what it's going to get done. But each of those 4 actions will work the same way each time, except that at the bottom of each of the cards for the AI, there will always be one additional something that the AI gets specifically with that card. So each of the actions is slightly different, and it's kind of as if those actions have gotten an inlay tile laid on them for the AI, just like you would do on your own sort of forge tiles in the game. So it does mean that each of their actions is slightly different. But again, they start with 4 of each, and anytime they take a forge action, they add a random card from the remaining cards into their hand. So every time you play, the AI is going to sort of upgrade in a different direction, making different actions happen more often, making different actions sort of stronger in some way, as yours do. Now, a lot of the stuff they're collecting, the different tiles like the coins and the inlays and all of those things, don't do anything for them. They just score flat points for them at the end of the game. But otherwise, the AI gets in your way. The AI races you along the way. And it really does feel like you're playing against an opponent. You can outthink them. You can outpace them. You can fight with them over different kinds of things. And I don't know, I haven't had a chance to play this multiplayer, and I absolutely will as soon as I can. But it really does feel like the AI is playing this game against me, and it really does feel like I have to deal with the AI. And it's not just that they're a nuisance there that makes me have to think about things differently. I don't know. There's a whole lot more I could say about this game, but I don't want to just keep rambling about the same things. I just want to say that I'm really, really enjoying this game. I think it's a great Euro game. If you're a fan of slightly heavier Euro games that are sort of worker placement focused, if you like engine building, if you like resource management, absolutely check this one out. Theming is great, the artwork is beautiful. I can't say too much more positive about this game, and there's really nothing about this game that irks me in any kind of way. That's basically all I have to say about this one. As always, I hope that this video was helpful for you, and if it was, I do ask that you please remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.